And I'm going to start recording, and because I want to honor everybody's time, I will just let people in as they show up. I want to take a second to ask anybody if they have anything exciting to share before we jump into the meat of the call. Any exciting news to share? Can you guys hear the birds or no? Okay, perfect. All right, I can hear them, but you can't. Okay, I do want to say that I did read about 70 pages of the book that you recommended. So I got through, I think 3 out of the 5 pillars or whatever he calls them. And Melissa Canoop, I thought of you a lot reading this book. So I think you're really gonna, like a lot of quotes that were in there, I was like, oh man, like I wanna share this with her. I wanna share this with her. And there was charts. I was like, man, this really was like it's a really good personal development book that I thought of for you. And I'm sure Kevin's gonna touch on it tonight, but.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what is the name of it? Did you write it in the thing for the meeting? What's the name of the book?
No, I think Kevin's gonna talk about it. So I'm just gonna let him be the one to talk about it. But I do want to announce Kevin and just share a little bit about, for those of you guys don't know who he is, I did post in the team page a little bit about his experience, and I'll also share a little bit about my personal experience with him. He started on the Beachbody corporate side for I think 2 years before he ended up joining Milan and becoming a coach. So I think most of you guys know Milan. A lot of you, if you went to Summit, we had our awesome lunch with her and our photo shoot, and she's an amazing woman, and Kevin and her are married. He's had 35 years of experience working with and mentoring business builders in 28 different countries in network marketing. And so yeah, he did. He worked for corporate for 2 years before he joined Milan. And then 12 years later, they now have a team of over 60,000 coaches with dozens of 5-star diamonds and Success Club legends and Million Club members. Me personally, I got to meet Kevin for the first time at Summit, and he's actually not my sponsor. I was sponsored by a girl named Anna, and she never really did anything with the business. So she had linked me up with her sponsors, which were Fernando and Pablo Bressan, and they were doing something with the business that wasn't really going to fit what I wanted to accomplish, like my model. So they ended up linking me up with, I'm going to mute everybody, linking me up with Kevin at Summit, and we got to have a lunch together. And ever since that moment, he became like a father figure kind of for me in the business, and was always just really encouraging, always telling me how amazing I am and trying to instill that belief in me as a leader and as a business builder and as a coach from day one, because he saw in me the things that I didn't see in myself, and was always willing to have tough conversations with me to try to refocus me away from shiny objects and recognition, and to focus on just the basics and really getting those down well, and really focusing on relationships first. So if there was anyone that taught me that, it was Kevin and Milan more than anybody else in this business, because they've always treated me like I was their family. They took me under their wing. They let me participate in whatever challenges they had going on. They treated me like I was their, sorry if it's freezing. Sometimes my internet is not that good. Is it freezing? Come on, don't do it right now.
Back.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, so they always treated me like I was their, personally sponsored coach. They always included me in all of the trainings and all the things that they did, and they really showed me. Every year I get a Christmas gift and a birthday gift from them, and it's always very thoughtful, and they just really showed me, come on, don't do this. I hate my internet. It's so horrible here. Come on.
We can hear you, but your image is frozen up.
Okay. All right. So anyway, thank you for being willing to come and guest speak on the call about, teaching coaches how to be successful in the business. And I'm excited to hear from you, and I'm sure everybody else is too. Oh man.
Some faces I don't recognize. A sign that Marissa's team is growing, which is always a good thing. If you don't remember anything else I tell you tonight, I will tell you this. A growing team will always result in energy, that results in productivity, that results in income. All right, so welcome to you all. Thank you for being willing to listen to this guy for a little while, but I feel like I have some information that can be of value to you. Before I get into that, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory. I was introduced to this concept that we call network marketing when I was 21 years old. I was dating a girl in college whose parents were really big into Amway. She invited me home one weekend to visit her, to meet her parents. And the first thing her mother's name is Hazel. First thing Hazel did was give me a big hug and then said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I'm a guest in your house, so I'm doing whatever you want me to do." She goes, "We're going to a meeting." And I like, yippee skippy. Understand that I was born to and raised by a couple of individuals that are fairly conservative. I like to brag on them as being amateur rodeo cowboys. My mom was a state champion barrel racer. My dad was a high qualifying team roper. I spent most of my nights at a rodeo arena somewhere. And my dad would also spent 7 years in the Navy. So I was raised in an environment where you speak only when spoken to, and you never show emotion. So I go to this meeting with Hazel and family, and there's 3,000 people in this high school auditorium, most of them older than 18 years old, and they are just going crazy from an energy and enthusiasm standpoint. And I'm shrinking down in my chair. Well, at the first break, Hazel comes up to me and she says, "I sense you're a little uncomfortable." And I said, "I'm not uncomfortable. I'm embarrassed for these adults. They're acting like kids." And she said, "Well, if you don't want to stay, here are the keys." She handed me the keys to her car. She goes, "We'll catch a ride home with some of our friends." This meeting was maybe 5 miles from their house. And she said, "But do me a favor before you go. Just kind of hang around during the break and listen to the conversations going on." I said, "I can do that." Trying to make good first impressions. And so I wandered around this break area. It was an outdoor patio area that was outside the auditorium. And I looked for the biggest group I could find so that I could be as inconspicuous as possible. And I started listening to the story. And as I heard the story of this husband and wife telling the group how it was their little home-based business that saved them from losing their home at a time when both of them were unemployed, it allowed them to keep from tapping into the savings account they had started for their children's education. I started thinking, what is this all about? And so I thought, you know what, I'll stick around until lunchtime. And if I don't like what I hear up until lunchtime, I'll leave. Well, lunchtime came and went. The afternoon break came and went. The end of the meeting came and went. The keynote speaker that day was a gentleman who was originally from the then Soviet Union, who had, through whatever means he was able to do so, made his way to the US, couldn't speak a word of English, learned English, struggled to find a job, was introduced to the idea of network marketing, built an empire, took the money he made, went back to the Soviet Union, and in whatever means and ways he needed to, he essentially purchased the freedom of his wife and 2 daughters. And they were able to, through whatever means were available back in the early 1980s, bring his family to the US. And he said to the group, "If you don't believe me, I'd like to introduce you to my family." Enter speaker stage left were 3 heart-stopping, now this is a man talking, heart-stopping gorgeous ladies with mascara just running down their face because they heard husband slash father telling the two people that were telling the story about saving their home. I got to know them well, and quite my trucks, and I attended the staff, and I got to meet one of the top distributors, and he got up in front of those hot trailers in the middle of the summer. Product is available for people to turn in, and then he went on to talk about how to deploy these kinds of impacts. I absolutely swallowed the network marketing bait all the way to my belly, right? And it's all short of 2 years, I kind of stepped out of it for a couple of years when I was about 7 years into the program, thinking, I wonder what real corporate America is like. I found out in 6 months what real corporate America was like and didn't really like it. So I started trying to get back into the network marketing space, and that led to being rehired by that same company. I ended up as a director of field sales training before I moved on to another company, with bigger opportunities, which was the company that allowed me to travel internationally and work with and mentor and learn from successful 6- and 7-figure income earners in 28 countries around the world. And then I just got tired of traveling. I was doing that job of traveling around the globe for 10 years, and I was 16 to 21 days a month somewhere else other than home. I just got tired of it, so I quit. And that's when Beachbody called. A gentleman that we had worked with was the person that Carl Deichler hired to start the Coach Network. So for about 6 months, maybe 7 months, he would call me every other month and say, hey, come and help us with this. And my answer was, I don't like the name. Back then, the name was $1 Million Body, because it was the $1 Million Body Game, right? The challenge back then was called the $1 Million Body Game. And I despised the name. I wouldn't even listen beyond the name. But every couple months, he would call and say, hey, come and do this with us. And we're like, no, thank you. Come and do this with us. We're like, no, thank you. Come and do this with us. No, thank you. Finally, in September of 2006, he called Milan, my wife, and I, and said, how about if you guys come to LA, free trip on us. We have a daughter who lives down there. So we thought, hey, a free trip to go hang out with Sandy for a weekend. And we sat down in the Beachbody office, not the one they have now. It was a smaller office closer to downtown LA. But we sat down and we met Carl, and we went from, because they got us there on the pretense of, hey, you can consult with us for a few months. Help us help us build a distributor kit, help us build basic training, help us create a recognition system, all that kind of stuff. That's how we agreed to go down and take a look at it. And then we met Carl. We fell in love with Carl's passion. We liked Carl's unique approach. We liked that he wanted to reinvent some things about the profession of network marketing that most folks don't like. So we said, how do we get involved in this thing? And that's when they said, funny you would ask. Chris was the gentleman that we were working with. He's the guy that I'd worked with in the previous company that left a year before I did, and then Carl hired him to start the network. Chris said, Kevin, we're going to make a ton of mistakes, and we need somebody on the sales team that people can trust and believe in, that can hold this thing together while the wheels are flopping around. And he turned to Milan and he said, Milan, you've told me for the 2 years I've known you that you're never going to work for somebody else again. but we're going to start this program with non-network marketers. We're going to start this program with people who have had success with our Beachbody programs, and they don't know anything about how to build a business. And we would like you to help us mentor those people as a distributor. So it turns out I agreed to be working on the corporate team. Milan started to build a team. In fact, hers is the first account number in the network. So she likes to say she was the first coach. Sounds good. And technically she was. Even before it was the network, they knew that that's where they wanted to plug her in. So I worked on the corporate team for the first 2 years. And then at some point in time, you know, that we relocated from our home in the wine country in Northern California down to LA so that I was closer to the office. And I just honestly got tired of the 405 traffic. I just got tired of the hustle and bustle of LA. And about that time, I started paying a little bit more attention to Milan's business because I was so busy working with the entire network. I wasn't paying a lot of attention to Milan's business because I knew she knew what she was doing. And I realized that she was making as much in a week as I was making in a month. So I went to Carl and I said, dude, as much as I like working with you, I like working with my wife better. And he slammed his hands down on the desk, started laughing and said, it took you long enough. So we created a little 90-day transition plan where I moved out of the corporate team and joined Milan in the business. And as Marissa said, here we are 12 years later. I left in September of 2008, and which was 2 years from the time that I agreed to work with the corporate team. And 12 years later, here we are. We live in the Sonoma wine country. Right now, I'm looking out the window. We have a little golf bungalow, we call it, a small little home. We had a bigger home, but it was just too much. You know, we only live in a couple of rooms at a time. We decided we wanted to move to a different community. We moved to the home that we have now. We have 3 daughters. We have 8 grandkids, 2 great grandkids. We had a Labby up until a few months ago when she finally crossed the bridge. We now have a cat named Moji that thinks he owns the place. But we have a good life, and it's all possible because we embraced an opportunity that honestly we didn't know was going to work or not. But here we are. Carl recently said we're up to 400,000 coaches. We got 2.6 million Shakeology customers on a monthly basis. There's a lot of really good stuff happening in the Beachbody space. So what I'm going to say to this group that we have right here tonight, looks like there's about 10 of us that are having this conversation. What I'm going to share with tonight is going to be geared to folks who are specifically looking to cause your Beachbody experience to become a supplemental or eventually full-time income opportunity. Now, some of you might say that's not why I joined the business, and that's great. Beauty of a network marketing community is you get to join for whatever reason it is you join. Your personal health, a sense of community. Maybe you have a small goal you want to achieve, and then it won't be as driven for you. But that's okay. But I'm gonna talk very business building minded tonight. So I encourage you to listen in. Some of you might say that's not my bag. I'm going to encourage you to stay on board anyway. Stay with us for this next half hour or so, and just have a listen to what I have to say, because here's something that I have learned. Life is always changing. And you never know when maybe a few extra $100 a month from a Beachbody business will be the difference between having to change your address, downsize your car, break out the credit cards, whatever it might be. You never know when those little hiccups might happen. And at least you'll know you'll have available to you some foundational concepts that will help you be successful in your business. So what I'm going to attempt to do now is share my screen. Marissa, can you enable screen sharing? If not, not a problem. I can talk through it and give you the PowerPoint later, and it will make sense. There we go. Thank you. Perfect.
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute. Okay, we got it.
We got it. So I'm going to talk about foundationally some of the concepts you should consider as you move forward in building a business that will be a supplemental income, part-time income, and potentially, if you want it to be a full-time income. And I'm going to reference it to two things. Number one, kind of like building a structure. And I'm also going to often reference how building a business parallels your fitness journey. Okay? So if you're familiar with building a structure, you know, you dig a little bit of a hole in the ground, you dig a deeper boundary along the edge of that hole, and you fill it full of concrete, and you put some rebar in that concrete all the way around. That's called the footings, right? And then from the footings, you pour a pad that becomes the floor, the foundational floor of your building. Well, for our conversation tonight, being intentional is the footings of your business. When you decide to intentionally approach building your business, you have a bit of a paradigm. Just like you made up your mind to be intentional in your fitness. And if you think about how you intentionally at night think about what is your workout tomorrow, maybe once a week or every other day, or how often it is you intentionally think about what is my meal plan going to be, and you start doing meal prep. That you have to be that intentional in your business the same way you're intentional with your living a healthier life journey. And now we start talking, once we've got those footings, the intentionality of it all, being intentional, now we start to put down the subfloor, that concrete piece that everything else is going to be attached to. And there are several pieces, assuming that we're doing that foundational piece in sections, there's several pieces that you need to be intentional in. The first one is a calendar, right? If you think about your fitness journey, you can download from Beachbody On Demand a calendar that shows you what the workout schedule is for whatever workout you're doing for the full course of that workout. The same thing needs to be true when it comes to a calendar. A few things to consider when you're considering your calendar is, number one, ideally it should be 90 days out, but never less than 30. And my recommendation to you is this: get a calendar that you might get from your local nursery or your local real estate or agent or your local insurance company. They send those things to you free in the mail. You can use that kind of a calendar, or you can download a calendar from the internet, or you can use a electronic calendar, or you can break out a planner. Trying to figure out where I buried mine with all the stuff. You can break out a planner, but you start to chart out your life for the next 90 days. What does charting out mean? It means, first of all, what commitments have you made over the next 90 days relative to your family time? Are there birthdays, reunions, anniversaries, piano recitals, soccer matches, whatever it is? Now, if you live in the state of California right now, you can't do any of those because you're in lockdown. But write those out on the day and the time that those happen. Write them into your calendar. Same thing with work extras. I'm not talking about going to work at 9 to 5 or whatever it is every day. I'm talking about extra work. Do you have overtime that you've committed to? Do you have a seminar you need to participate in? Do you whatever it is relative to the beyond the norm, write those days and times that you're committed relative to your work. Same thing if you're participating in a church community. What commitments have you made on what day and what time? Same thing with your community. Maybe you participate in a mentoring program. I know Marissa was, she may still be doing that, participating in a mentoring program for underprivileged kids or whatever it is. What days and times are you committed to those? Maybe you're a coach for a youth athletic team or whatever. Write those into your calendar. Now, how about your own personal fitness journey? When is your workouts? What days and what times? And then a critical component to all of this is personal time. Personal time in two areas. Number one, personal development, and number two, personal decompression. Sometimes you just got to get away from it all, close the door, turn off the lights, and listen to the music. When are you going to do that? What days and what times? Make that kind of a commitment to your life for the next 90 days. Now that you've done that, what you can do is you can go back, you can take a look at your calendar and say, oh, Monday, the 10th of August is absolutely top to bottom full. I'm not going to be able to commit to my Beachbody business outside of my personal fitness and personal development time. So there's no business commitment to my, but Tuesday the 11th, I've got time from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I would suggest that you write Beachbody business time, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then you do mentally make a commitment right now that 2-hour time frame is business time. Maybe on Wednesday it's during your lunch break, or maybe Wednesday's an off day and you can say, I can do some work from 9 to 11 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon. Whatever it is, just make a commitment to that by writing it down on your calendar and highlighting it, circling it in red, whatever it is, so it jumps out and grabs you. Here's the key. The key is commit to your business hours in the same way you're prepared to commit to your family time or your personal time. Commit to the level of intensity that you would do if it was a sibling's birthday or a child's birthday or a spouse's birthday or a promise you've made to your community or to your church that you would never consider missing unless you were so sick you couldn't get out of bed or some emergency flared up. Make that level of commitment to your business. Next little intentional practice is creating a list of who you can help. Okay? Who do you know that can benefit from what you offer in the Beachbody space? Write down every name that comes to your mind. No judgment. Don't think, oh, they're already fit as a fiddle. They would never be interested. Oh, they're already a personal trainer. They'd never be interested. Oh, they're already a successful real estate agent. They'd never be interested. No judgment. Just write their names down as they come to your mind. And here's a thought process that I want, because, well, let me skip the question and come down to the next statement. This activity is a filtering activity. I can promise you, of the 10 people on this call, 9 of us are thinking there's no way in China I'm going to do this activity. There's no way you're going to get me to tell other people that I'm a Beachbody coach. Better yet, or worse yet, there's no way you're going to get me to tell other people that Beachbody is an income opportunity. There's just no way it's going to happen. That's what's going on in your mind. You know how I know? Because it goes on in mine too. And it has for 35 years. But here's the question. If you purchased a product from your local market, whether it be a grocery market, a produce stand, or your local GNC store, and you experienced results that had a life-changing impact, would you keep that result secret to yourself? Or would you immediately start thinking about people you know that you would want them to have the same kind of experience that you're having? Now, you may never, okay, listen really closely, ladies, you may never reach out to any of these people on your list, okay? The reason we go through this exercise is because it starts a process of mind shift. It shifts you from the mindset of this is kind of a, I'll do it when I get to it, maybe this week, maybe not, to a, hey, I started a business and I need to be engaged in business building activities. Okay? What business are you in? You're in the business of helping people live healthy lives. And who wouldn't? I mean, you could look at the list you create and just send them a quick little text or a messenger message that says, hey, is living a healthier way of life something that you think about on a regular basis, ? And just see how they respond. I promise you that for 100 people that you send that to, at least 80 of them are going to tell you, yes, it's something I think about on a regular basis. So create that list. No one is going to force you to do anything with that list that you don't want to do, but the list is a mind shift thought process, a paradigm shift thought process, a filter that gets you to start thinking a little bit differently. So please, I'm going to beg you till the cows come home, create that list. Next is workspace. If you're going to be in business, then be in business. And what does that mean? It means designate space in your home that can be your workspace. And what does that mean? It means that if you are sitting in that chair in that corner at that desk, or if you're sitting at that kitchen table, but you've got papers spread out in front of you, that you've got your laptop open, that you're in business, and they have agreed not to interrupt you while you're in business. Create that workspace, right? Ideally, it would be a designated space where you can minimize disturbances. But if you're in a situation or an environment where there's not a lot of space that you can trust just letting stuff sit out, or if you happen to be a very tidy-minded person and it drives you crazy that little part of your home isn't as clean and pristine as you would like it to be, that's okay. Just make sure that it's space that you can take the little box that you've created that is your business box. You can set it on the corner of the desk or on the corner of the table, and you can start laying the papers and tools out that you need. And at the end of your business hours, you gather those up and you put them back in your business box. But have it the same space all the time. Next, let's start talking about belief. A few things to think about. There's 3 areas or things to believe in for maximum results in your business. First of all, believe that you're capable of being successful. Now, trust me, if you were to come and spend a day with me, and then you were to meet up with Marissa at dinner time, and Marissa said to you, so how did it go? Within the first couple of statements you make out of your mouth, one of the statements will be, if that dude can be successful in this business, there's no way I can't. That means I can be successful. One of my favorite stories of all time relative to network marketing is about a young man that I met in South Africa. This young man had one leg. And there was a story behind the loss of his leg. He was, along with several other young men, were living in Uganda. No, he was living in Ghana. He was living in Accra, Ghana, and his dream was to get to Italy. Apparently, there's a lot of folks that leave that part of West Africa, and their dream is to get to Italy, which now opens the door to all of Europe. So he and his friends left in a car that they had spent all their money buying, an old beat-up car. They were driving down the road in West Africa, and they had a head-on collision. And that's not unusual. Trust me, I've driven those roads, and I have seen my life flash before my eyes many times on those darn roads, because they're narrow and drivers do not respect the little teeny division line in the road. Anyway, they were in a collision. It ended up, his two friends died instantly. He was pinned in the wreck, and the only way they could get him out was to amputate his leg. So they amputated his leg. He moved to South Africa where his family was, and he got a job washing cars. Leaning on a crutch on one leg and his good leg, he was washing cars, and a gentleman pulled up in a really nice car, handed him a waterless car wash solution and said, "Please use this on my car." And the young man's like, "What is it?" And this guy said, "Well, I sell this product, and I've sold enough of this product to buy that car you're about to wash." And this young man said, "Tell me more about it." So he went on to talk about this little home-based business that he worked on after hours and what it meant to him. And this young man signed up to be a distributor, and he quickly moved through the ranks of success. And when I heard him tell his story, he said, "I won a trip to Madagascar. It's the first time I was ever on a plane. It's the first time I ever stayed in a hotel room. It's the first time I ever had a warm shower. It's the first time I ever swam in a clean pool." He went on and on and on and talked about all these first times. And if you were to look at that young man, you would never think he would be successful in that business, but he was. Okay? So believe in your abilities and possibilities. Number two, believe that you have what other people want or need and they're willing to pay for. If we have 2.6 million people on Shakeology, people must be willing to pay for it. If we have, I don't know how many it is, recently it's been like 40,000 people in a month subscribing to Beachbody on demand, people must be willing to pay for it. So you have a product and or service that people are willing to pay for. Okay? And finally, believe that the Beachbody business model works. And what I mean by that, believe that the network marketing business model that Carl chose because it was the best model to create relationships that encouraged participation, because he could continue to sell this stuff the way he was selling it. He could sell it on a shelf at GNC, but he knows that the best way for people to get results is to have a personal coach. That's why the whole coach network exists. Is because when Carl started seeing people with success, he reached out to them and said, "Hey, what are you doing to be successful?" And they said, I've got a coach on the chat room. Tracy Morrow is coaching me on my program. Robert Hudgens is coaching me on my program. Mark Briggs is coaching me on my program. These are folks that were in the community before the network started that were coaching people for free because they wanted to help them get results. Carl's like, wow, we could probably get more coaches coaching if there was a financial reward associated with it. What's the best way to create a financial reward? And he went to a bunch of his friends that were business savvy, and they said, you should try a network marketing model. So here we are. Okay? Now, this whole idea of belief, guys, this is where personal development factors into the success formula. Personal development needs to be on your calendar on a daily basis. There are going to be some days when personal development's your workout and personal development are the only things you're going to have the energy or the mindset to engage in. And that's okay. It happens. Happens to all of us. My biggest mentor, the gentleman that I worked for those years that I was traveling all over the globe, he started out as a distributor. Took some of the money that he earned as a distributor, bought a minority share in a small little network marketing company, turned it into a successful company, sold it back to the people he bought it from, and started another company. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard his story, but basically he said in his story, there were days when I just could not pick up the phone. There were days I could not knock on one more door. Says, and what I did to get through those days is I'd lock myself in the bathroom, sit in the bathtub, and read the Bible. That was his personal development system. He says my wife would knock on the door, open the door, set a tuna fish sandwich on a plate with some chips on the toilet seat, close the door, and I'd spend more time in the bathroom reading the Bible. He says, but the next day I got up with a mind fresh to go do what I know that needed to get done. So what I have on this screen, if you'll notice across the top, it said leaders are readers. Now, in today's world, you can be a listener and be a reader, right? But leaders are readers. And here's 3 books that I recommend that if you have not read them yet, you should read them. And if it's been more than a year that you read them, you should go read them again. The Power of 5 is the book that Marissa was referring to earlier, Melissa, when she pointed out to you. The Power of 5 is one of the best belief building books I have ever read relative to believing in the business model. John Maxwell did a really good job with this book. Really good job with this book. I'm 100% comfortable and confident that if you will make time to read this book, it will influence how you perceive the business you have available to you. Now, you can get this book a couple of ways. Or through my wife, helped John create the concept, her and many others, wasn't just Milan. But Milan and several other Beachbody coaches and other network marketing distributors from other companies got together with John in his circle of influence, and they helped him shape the content of this book. Because of that, Milan has the ability to sell this book at a discount to folks who want to buy it. We will get Marissa the link. She can give it to you guys if you want to buy it. It's basically $16 delivered to your door. You can get this Power of 5 book. I strongly encourage it, strongly encourage it. It's the kind of book that you cannot read without putting yellow markers and blue markers and orange markers and all kinds of stuff, because there's so much really good stuff in it. The Slight Edge, there's also the Compound Effect. They're both very, very similar in their structure and makeup. I happen to be a Slight Edge fan. I think there's a little bit more linear, get it done philosophy in the Slight Edge than the Compound Effect. But if you prefer the Compound Effect author, I'm looking for my Compound Effect books, I forget his name, then that's fine. They're close enough that you're not going to miss out. I happen now, Jeff Olson's very linear in the way he thinks.
Darren Hardy is the Compound Effect.
Darren Hardy, thank you, Marissa. Darren Hardy is a little bit more of the creative thought.
I'm a Compound Effect girl, so just okay. FYI.
And that wouldn't surprise me, because if you know Marissa, if the music goes on, she can't stop dancing, right? Me, if the music goes on, I start trying to figure out how to tap my toe to the beat. I think in a linear way, Marissa thinks in a creative way. Whichever, if you're a linear person, the Slight Edge. If you're a little bit more of the creative, toss it to the wind and see what comes back to you person, the Compound Effect. But they're both really good. And then this other book from Simon Sinek, Start with Why. If you haven't read this one, this is a really good one, especially if you have influence in the lives of other people, kids, spouse, coworkers. If you're a boss, quote unquote, in your job, Start with Why. You should read it for no other reason, and it will influence how you interact with other people. 3 books that I would invite you to consider as part of your personal development. Jim Rohn, one of my favorite guys on the planet. You can actually find Jim's stuff on YouTube. But one of the things that Jim Rohn said that I've never ever forgotten is your income will seldom exceed your personal development. And I've seen it happen, guys, on multiple occasions where somebody steps into this thing and out of pure adrenaline, they start to see some success that they didn't expect, but their ability to handle that success because of their lacking in personal development got in their way, and they start to lose that success just because you can't run on adrenaline forever. So I encourage you to spend some time in the world of personal development. And the last thing I want to talk about relative to these concepts or these foundational pieces to the intentional foundation is why. Why did you say yes to becoming a Beachbody coach? You're all coaches, so there must have been something going on in your mind that caused you to say yes to the opportunity. What was that? Have you ever articulated it, or was it just a feeling or an emotion? I'm going to invite you to reconnect to that moment when you said yes to being a Beachbody coach. What was the reason? And once you connect to that reason, I encourage you to take time to either record it, voice record it, or write it down in print so that it now becomes a part of who you are. And it doesn't have to be a financial reason. I became a Beachbody coach because I was 40 pounds overweight and I did not like what I see when I looked in the mirror. And being a Beachbody coach gave me the best price. Awesome. But what I want you to talk about how that you cannot do now because you have time or money constraints. Okay? What will you buy that you can't afford to buy now? Say you're making an extra $500 a month in your Beachbody business. What would you do with that $500? What if it became 1,000? What if it became 2,000? What would you do with that? Now, most of you are probably going to say pay off debt. You're right. That should be your first goal, if you have any. But once the debt's paid off, now what are you going to do with that money? And if you say, I'm going to save it for retirement, great. What is life going to look like for you when you retire? What are you going to buy? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Okay. Here's another question that is always a fun question to answer is, what impact will you make in the world that is not currently possible given your time and money situation? Do you want to start a nonprofit for underprivileged kids? Do you want to start a nonprofit for single moms who need additional education so that they can improve their situation? Do you want to start a nonprofit to help couples become better couples? Do you want to start a nonprofit to help third world developing nations drink cleaner water? Whatever it is, what impact do you want to have that you cannot currently have because you're limited by time or money? Once you have described all of that, I encourage you to take that voice description or that written description and find pictures that reinforce that image that you've created in voice or in print. So that, you know what they say about pictures speak 1,000 words? Create that collage of pictures, whether it be online or whether it be more old school on a piece of poster board or stuck to your wall. What pictures represent why you got involved in this business? Once you have done that, you've written it down, you've created a little image board in your calendar during your personal time, I invite you to spend at least 5 minutes a day of your personal time living in the space of the why that you've created. If you have a why that I want to take my family to Italy, then I want you to sit down every day, or I encourage you to sit down every day and say, what is that experience going to be like? If you have children, might be thinking, what are my kids going to do when we hand them the airline ticket saying we're going to Italy? What do you imagine their excitement being when they rush onto that big jet airliner to fly across the water? What do you imagine their excitement is going to be when they get off the plane in Rome or Milano or wherever it is that you land, and they're in awe about all that's going on around them? What are you going to do? You know, what's the experience for you going to be when you visit the leaning town of Pisa and your kids are just in awe of, how is that building still standing, Mom? You know, whatever it is that is your why, live in it every day for 5 to 10 minutes. Live in it as if it's actually happening for you right then and right there. Okay, just a couple other things will be done. But another Jim Rohn quote: the stronger the why, the easier the how becomes. And here's what you're going to notice is if you will engage in the activity that I just encouraged you to participate in, and you do that on a daily basis, the other parts of the program are going to be easier for you to participate in. Much like when you wake up in the morning, you don't want to work out, but then you look at the pictures of the before and the afters that you imagine, or you imagine the dress or the jeans or the whatever outfit it is that you can't currently fit into, that you want to fit into. And now all of a sudden, even though you're sore as all get out and you know that today is going to be a brute, you still go push play. You do that because of the image that's in front of you. The same thing holds true in the business side of the business. All right, now that we've got that foundational piece down, let's talk about the first layer that you put on top of that foundation, that now this becomes the support structure for the walls and the roof of the building, whether it be a 100-story building, a 10-foot building, a 20-foot building, there is a framing, if you will, of what goes down now. And for us to be successful in this business, you have to take action. I call it IPA. Now, if any of you are beer drinkers, it isn't this brand of beer, okay? This is income producing activity. Okay, what is income producing activity? I'm going to simply suggest, ask or do what your leaders are suggesting you do. That's the activity you should engage in. Engage in whatever your leadership team are encouraging you to engage in. Now, I will tell you that most of us think that we've got a better way, and we're not 100% comfortable with what our leaders are suggesting that we do. So we go off and we spend half of our time trying to reinvent something we feel comfortable with. I'm going to tell you that honestly, it's a waste of time. If you've got a structure in front of you that has been producing results, and how do you know if it's producing results? The person that's teaching it to you, if they're earning an income because of what they're doing, then they must be producing results. You should follow their lead. Okay? If you are one of those independent thinkers where I don't care how good it works, I still want to create my own way, I want my own identity, I want my own team, I'm going to suggest that you don't even start down that path until you have worked in your leader's system, their method of operation, their way of doing business every day for 90 days. Not 90 days, you start and you work 5 times over 90 days and say, well, I've given it 90 days. I'm talking about 90 days of consistency. Okay? Remember, just like your healthy lifestyle, your business lifestyle requires daily choices and daily activity. Which leads us to this comment of consistency. Guys, it's been a lot of years now, because I've been in the Beachbody space since 2006, 14 years. I'm going to say 16, 18 years ago, maybe maybe 20 years ago, I don't know for sure. I was in Hawaii at a world leadership event with the company I was working for. The #1 producing distributor in the entire company, and they did business in 50 countries around the world. The #1 distributor in the entire company came from South Africa. He owned a game preserve that his business allowed him to buy. He built his own convention center, and he built a dorm-style accommodations that would handle up to 25 male gender and 25 female gender. He had an airplane that he would fly all over Africa to pick up his leaders and fly him into his resort area. And I'm sharing this with you just because I want to create possibility. But if you were to meet this guy, you would think, how in the world did he do this? Because when I walked up to him, his name was Charlie. When I walked up to Charlie and said, Charlie, what is your secret to success? He started talking to me in his Afrikaans English. I couldn't understand a word he was saying to me, and he was speaking English. And he mumbled like crazy, and he stuttered on occasion. But I slowed him down and said, wait, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're saying. And I said, what is your secret to success? And he said, Kevin, I'm going to tell you 2 things. #1, it took me about 2 years to figure it out because I didn't have an upline leadership. My wife and I lived on tuna and ramen noodles for 2 years. Once I figured a system out and I started teaching it to my team, he said, my key to being successful is I do the consistent things that I tell my newbies to do. And I said, what does that mean, Charlie? And he said, it means that in his system, they recruit 3 people every month. No matter what, they find 3 new distributors every month. That's part of the system. They have back then, and I don't know how much it's changed now, but back then, they did a hotel meeting every Thursday night. And they had a guest at that meeting every Thursday night. Every Saturday morning, they had a getting started training for the new people that started. The people that went to the training were introduced to what they call the nursery. And they had activities that they engaged in that nursery for a period of time before they then went out into the world and started recruiting people to come to their meeting. That was the system that he followed. And Charlie, who was making the equivalent 1.3, 1.4 million US dollars a year, even 11 years later, when I was asking him his secret to success, he said, Kevin, I am consistently doing the basics that I tell my newbies to do. In his case, he adds 3 new people before the 10th day of the month. Why? Because he wants to spend the next 20 days helping those 3 people find 3 people. But that's Charlie's way. And I was shocked that here's a guy that was mega successful, had a massive organization, and he was stuck in, a lot of folks, you'll hear them call it phase 1. He was stuck in phase 1, even though he was overwhelmingly successful, and by far the most successful distributor in this company that did business in 50 countries around the world. Consistency is a key. And where are you consistent? You're consistent in what your upline leaders suggest that you do on a daily basis, and you're consistent in these basic activities that I've been talking about tonight. Okay? A few quotes real quick. We become what we want to be by consistently being what we want to become each day. We become what we want to be by consistently being what we want to become each day. Richard G. Scott. Second quote, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Credit to Aristotle on that one. Last one, if you persist, you will get it. If you are consistent, you will keep it. I pulled that one off Daily Quotes. Okay, one last thing. I apologize, Marissa. I'm a little bit beyond my minute, but I'll be done here in just a couple seconds. I'm a visual kind of guy, even though I'm linear. Imagine that you are standing in front of you is this teeter-totter, right? And on the one hand of the teeter-totter is the why you got in the business. And you walk over to the other end of that teeter-totter and you pull as hard as you can, and you cannot lift it enough to cause that why to slide down towards you so you can experience it. As hard as you try, you just can't do it. But then you notice there near that end of the teeter-totter, you notice this pile of bricks. Well, pulling on that teeter-totter was income producing activity. And when you're trying to do it by yourself and you only do it a few times and say it's too heavy, I can't do it, and you give up. But you notice this pile of bricks. So every day you take a couple of bricks and you put it in the box, the income producing activity box. And you do that every day. At some point in time, the weight caused by your daily activity is going to cause that teeter-totter to tip. And whatever it is that you wanted to achieve as a result of your income producing activity is going to slide right into your lap. So that's my visual as to what you can engage in to be successful. So a lot of content, right? But if you go back and look at your notes, it's pretty basic. 5 fundamental intentional things to do to prepare yourself to be successful. Then be consistent in whatever it is that your leader suggests that you do. 1 or 2 final comments. You're probably not, most days you're probably going to go to bed saying, why did I do that? There's a book written out there written called The 4-Year Career by a gentleman by the name of Richard Bliss Brooks, The 4-Year Career. And it basically says, if you will give yourself 4 years in this little side gig, you'll be shocked where you are 4 years from now. And I can tell you based on my own personal experience that the first 6 months you're learning more than you're earning. The second 6 months you're learning the real success will start to kick in a year into your business. That doesn't mean that you won't make, your $80 check here, your $120 check here, your $200 check here. But a year from now, you'll be looking at, that $200 check a week. That now becomes $800 a month or more, whatever it is, depending on how many daily income producing activities you engage in. Be in this thing for the long run. One of my favorite phrases, and this is one of my favorite phrases, be here in a year. And like I recommended earlier, before you start thinking about creating your own system, be here in a year where you can look back and say, I was consistently engaged in income producing activities on a regular basis. Now, granted, regular basis for one person might be 4 days a week because of the demands of other parts of life. Hey, this is a part-time opportunity. For someone else, regular basis might be 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. For somebody else, it might be 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's the beauty of setting a calendar, is you get to identify when your business is open for business and you are consistently engaged in income producing activities during that time. So I'm going to be quiet now.
Well, that was a lot of information. But I think the only thing I wanted to say at the end is that only if you're consistent for that year will you have that $200 a week check. Not if you're, just doing it a little bit and then not doing it and doing it a little bit and then not doing it. So, do you have time for maybe like one?
I have time for all kinds of questions. I mean, it's only 6 o'clock here on the West Coast. So, hey,
well, I got to work in the morning, so I don't have time for all kinds of questions, but it's 9 o'clock over here. But I do want to see if anyone had something, if you have time, to see if there was a burning question people wanted to ask you.
There's not, but so let me just make this one comment. It was a lot of information, guys. But remember that you can now take what you have learned, listen to the recording, take a look at your notes, and just chart it out in your business calendar. You know, it might take you a few days to get through all of those basic fundamental things, and that's okay. This is your business. You get to run it at your pace. You know, pick your pace at your speed, and do it. But as Marissa said, and as I have experienced personally and with all the folks that I have mentored, I have never, ever in 35 years met someone who came back to me after a year of consistent effort and said, that was the biggest waste of time that I've ever participated in. Ever.
As long as
normally they say, wow, I had no idea that I could be where I am just by doing that consistent effort on a regular basis.
And I like that you talked, even though it was a lot of information, it was really basic stuff. It's not like anyone can do it. It's not, it's not rocket science. And I think that's where a lot of, especially like new coaches and people coming into the business, they see all these coaches doing all these crazy things on these trainings and stuff. And I just did a video on the team page where I said, like, keep it to these basics, focus on your own personal journey, create your list of names. I was like nodding. I'm like, yes, Kevin is like, that's what Jamie and I just talked about. I was like, create a list of names, and then start sharing your journey in your personal life and on social media and inviting people to participate with, in this journey with you. And if you focus on those things and you stop trying to do like shiny, like filters or Instagram stories or whatever it is, and you focus on connecting with people, that's all I do. I'm in phase 1. That's why I still am seeing my income growing week upon week right now with, COVID especially, because I'm still in phase 1 and recruiting new people in my challenge groups and on my team. So, dang it, is it freezing? Ugh. But anyway, I just wanted to reiterate that I agree with everything you said. Thank you for taking the time to explain it in a very, I felt, simple way. And I hope everybody got a lot of good information.
And, a comment that I was taught by my mentor, he used to end his presentations like this every time he would say, may the very least that you desire be the most that you achieve. I will feel like my contribution was of value. But he also knows, because of his lifestyle, that somebody that gets to the least that they have desired to achieve, the momentum takes them beyond what their expectations were. So, work for the little stuff, and the big stuff just kind of finds you. You don't have to go looking for it. It comes and finds you.
Didn't Danny Johnson say that when she started, she was like, well, if I fail 90%, if I'm just 10% successful, then I'll be, doing better than like she was doing. So you just have to think about, like it like that. Like if you fail 90% of the time more than like the top earner in the business, you're still going to be great, earning a great living and helping a lot of people.
Yeah, and and I love the key that you added, that helping other people. When our focus is on knowing that we deliver an offering that will significantly impact other people's lives, the other peripheral stuff that we get rewarded with, it comes along for the ride, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I hear oftentimes, people will say, one of the biggest reasons that they like working with my wife, Milan, is Milan talks to them about, Milan will say, I don't care what you achieve, I care who you become. And the greatest thing about network marketing is you become a better person if you engage in it in the right way. And if you're a better person, that means the people around you are influenced by you, and more and more. Heaven knows right now we could, we can all exert our better person influence to create a lot more positive energy around us, and hopefully we can. But at the same time, guys, I will tell you, Beachbody is thriving in this current scenario. I talked to a CEO of another company because I know so many people in this profession. The other day, I talked to a CEO in another company. Their business is the best it's been in 4 or 5 years during this time. It's a health and wellness group. I have friends that are in businesses that, I mean, who would have thought that the plexiglass business would be setting records every day over the previous day because everybody's buying plexiglass, right? you can look at the negative sides or the positives. So I could talk all night. Just know that without any hesitation, I believe that if you'll give it a good solid year of consistent, regular income producing activities, 90 days at a time, don't look at the year, look at it in that 90-day calendar. When we meet, whether it be in St. Louis next July at Summit or wherever we are, when we meet up, you're going to look at me and say, you know what? You were right. I did not imagine what would be possible that I'm now experiencing as a Beachbody coach. So.
And if you're like me, where I've been around for 9 years, I like grew up in this business. Like I grew up with the personal development, and I'm a completely different person now than I was 9 years ago. And, just that alone it was worth me sticking it out even through the hard times. But in addition to that, this week, my income was double what it has been consistently week over week before COVID hit. But that came from me committing to putting that consistent effort of bringing on board new people, just so you know. So it's all the things that Kevin said is what leads to success, and anybody can do it if they have belief in themselves. So Kevin, thank you so much. I love you, and tell Milan I love Milan, and we thank you and we appreciate you, and I'll connect with Milan and see if she wants me to do a call for her now.
Okay.
And I'll probably ask her to come to talk to us so that people can hear from her next.
And if you want that link, ask Milan. She can provide you the link so your team can buy the Power of 5 book.
Okay, I'll get it.
At the discounted price.
Cool.
She is actually, when we started this call, she was work beach so much for your just go look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm the best I can be today. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, guys.